Today, I'm going to go over a pretty cool algorithm. Its job is to detect harmonics, find out how big they are, and try to attenuate them. We're going to look at how to implement this algorithm to handle back EMF harmonics in permanent magnet motors. So why would my motor have harmonics in its back EMF waveforms? And are they detrimental? I assume you know what back EMF is, but here's a short recap. When magnetic flux passes through and changes across some wire or loop, it generates voltage in that loop. Here's a nice simulation made by Pavel Ponomarev showing a permanent magnet motor with its rotor spinning. We can see the permanent magnets here, and we can see their flux passing through the stator teeth. So the flux passing through the stator teeth changes as the rotor rotates. It's not shown in this simulation, but there are copper coils looping around these stator teeth. So there is a changing magnetic flux passing through these coils, which induces a voltage in them. And that voltage is the aforementioned back EMF. Now that we hopefully understand what back EMF is, where do the harmonics come from? Well, it's a combination of physics and cost. When we think about a normal brushless permanent magnet motor, we might not realize all the factors that can significantly affect the motor's performance in terms of cogging torque, back EMF harmonics, acoustic noise, and more. The factor I'm going to focus on is the magnetic flux shape and how it interacts with the generated magnetic field in the stator. A simple rectangular magnet is cheapest to manufacture and assemble, but its magnetic flux is relatively constant across its width. And with a small gap followed by a magnet with the same shape and opposite polarity, we get a relatively trapezoidal back EMF waveform. And if we compare the FFT results of a sine wave and the trapezoid, we can see the harmonics in the trapezoid. Also notice that the trapezoid has more energy in the fundamental frequency compared to the sine wave. So just keep in mind that although harmonics are added, a trapezoidal waveform can offer a higher overall flux. Assuming we want to mitigate these harmonics, there are several ways to do that. First, we can change the magnet's flux shape. We can do this by changing the magnet's physical shape, from rectangular to a sort of crescent shape, for example. That way the magnetic flux changes gradually along the width of the magnet. We can also create magnets that have a specific magnetic pattern using specialized fixtures and thus create magnets that have a sinusoidal magnetic waveform. Another common solution is skewing. Rotor skewing is most common. The rotor skewing can be done in steps or continuously. Usually it's done in steps due to cost. The stator can also be skewed, but is less common for several reasons. Among them, the fact that it's much trickier or more costly to wind the coils in a skewed stator compared to skewing the magnets in the rotor. Both skewing options smooth out the interaction between the permanent magnet's flux and the stator's generated magnetic field. The eventual solution or solutions, since the solutions can be combined, simply depends on the application and how stringent the requirements are. Okay, so we explained the potential source for harmonics on the back EMF. Now let's see why these harmonics can negatively affect our control loops. The short answer is that harmonics mean higher frequencies, and higher frequencies are harder to control. Now here's the longer answer. I'll assume we're using field-oriented control to control the motor currents. In field-oriented control, we transform back and forth between a three-phase stationary reference frame, ABC, and a two-phase rotating reference frame, DQ, using the Clark and Park transformations. Because the DQ reference frame is rotating, we deal with DC values. I'll explain why that's desirable in a minute. Here's a general block diagram of FOC control. We command certain DC, D, and Q currents. Now, usually these commands are executed by PI controllers who output D and Q voltages that we then transform to the ABC reference frame. We then sense the phase currents in the ABC reference frame, transform them again to the DQ reference frame to know how far away the sensed D and Q currents are from the commanded values, and on we go. One of the reasons we do these back and forth transformations is because it's much easier to control DC values. Just look at the Bode plot of a PI controller. The lower the frequency, the higher the gain, and the easier it is for the controller to cancel out the error. So we want to control DC values, and ideally we want the resulting phase currents to be perfect sine waves, because when we convert sinusoidal phase currents to the DQ reference frame, we get perfect DC values. So where do the back EMF's harmonics come into play? Well, if the back EMF is sinusoidal, so are the phase voltages, and so are the phase currents. That means the DQ reference frame values are all DC values, which are easily handled by the PI controllers. But if the back EMF has harmonics, that means that the voltages and currents in the ABC reference frame will also get harmonics, resulting in harmonics in the DQ reference frame as well. Now, we still have a feedback controller, so it can handle harmonics, but only up to a certain frequency. So at lower frequencies, the phase voltages will match the back EMF harmonics to make sure the currents are still sinusoidal, since we are still commanding DC, D, and Q currents, which means we're expecting sinusoidal phase currents. However, as the frequency increases, the feedback controller will be less and less able to handle these harmonics, and slowly but surely, harmonics will gradually appear on the phase currents. So, short recap. Sinusoidal back EMF, easy peasy. The feedback controllers are able to easily track the commanded values with minimal errors, and the feedback controller's outputs are DC values. Back EMF with harmonics? It depends. At lower frequencies, the feedback controllers are still able to track the commanded values, but they start having to work a bit harder, their outputs starting to oscillate harmonically. At higher frequencies, the feedback controllers aren't able to suppress the harmonics fast enough, so the commanded values aren't being tracked successfully. Let's focus on two major reasons why these harmonics may lead to problems. First, harmonics on the D and Q axis currents will lead to torque ripples. As we covered earlier, we command certain D and Q axis currents to output certain torques. If these commands aren't followed precisely and the actual D and Q axis currents oscillate, so will the output torque. Second, as the speed increases, so do the back EMF harmonics amplitudes. This results in larger oscillations on the D and Q voltages, assuming the harmonic frequencies are still within the controller's bandwidth. This might not necessarily sound like a problem, but in applications where you try to get the most out of your motor with the given supply voltage, this could become an issue. There is a limit to the phase voltages the drive unit can output, so large oscillations on the voltage outputs will eventually hit a hard ceiling. This means that you'll either be limited to a lower power output, so the oscillations don't exceed this voltage limit, or your voltage commands will simply saturate, resulting in poor performance tracking and potential divergence of the control loop. Okay, so we discussed what back EMF is and how its harmonics may pose an issue for the control loop. It's time to introduce the Adaptive Feedforward Cancellation algorithm, or AFC for short, and show how applying it in different ways can solve these two major issues: torque ripple and voltage ripple. The algorithm's first step is to detect whether a predetermined frequency exists in a signal. It does so in a way that's very similar, or maybe even identical, to a discrete Fourier transform. Let's say we have some DC signal. We sample this signal and multiply it by a sine wave and a cosine wave with a predetermined frequency. To know if this predetermined frequency exists in our signal, we look at the sum of multiplications. In this case, we simply get a sine wave and a cosine wave, and if we sum the points across many samples, their sums will converge to zero, and this tells us that the signal doesn't have the frequency we're looking for. Let's change the sampled signal to a sine wave with double the frequency of our sine and cosine waves. We repeat the same process, and we can see that the sum of both multiplications result in zeros. Only when we change the sampled signal to a signal that contains the same frequency does the sum increase in value and does not converge to zero. Notice that the sum of the signal multiplied by the sine wave isn't zero, whereas the cosine multiplication is still zero, since this algorithm takes care of phase shifts as well. Here's an example of a sine wave with the same frequency phase shifted by 45 degrees. We can see that the sum of both the sine and the cosine multiplications will increase at the same rate. There is some additional math involved to make this algorithm useful. I'll show the code implementation after going over some examples. Shout out to Brian Douglas for giving me the idea for this explanation. Now, some examples. Let's see how to use the AFC algorithm to solve each of the two major issues I mentioned earlier. I'll use a motor simulator I made. If you want some background on this simulator, I made a video about it. I'll put a link in the top right corner. First, I'll simulate some operating point with a sinusoidal back EMF without the AFC algorithm. Beautiful. The D and Q currents are DC. So are the D and Q voltages. We can see the phase currents and the back EMF waveforms are nice sinusoids, and we can see a relatively constant torque. Now let's add some harmonics. I'll add the 5th and the 7th harmonics. Okay, now we can see some oscillations on the D and Q currents. There are also harmonics on the D and Q voltages. These harmonics are the result of the PI controller trying to make sure the resulting phase currents will be sinusoidal as commanded despite the back EMF harmonics. The phase currents are almost sinusoidal, but not quite. And we can also see a slight torque ripple. Let's solve the torque ripple issue first. In this simulation, I'll use the AFC algorithm in the parallel method, meaning the AFC algorithm takes the same error as the PI controller and adds its output to the PI controller's output. So in our case, the AFC's input will be the current error, and its outputs will be added to the PI controller's outputs, which are the D and Q voltages. Let's run the simulation again with the AFC algorithm this time. Alright, the D and Q currents return to be DC values. The phase currents look sinusoidal again. The torque ripple reduced a bit, though some variations are still there since even though the phase currents are sinusoidal, the back EMF isn't. And the torque generated due to the permanent magnets is a function of the multiplication of the two. We can also see the higher D and Q voltage oscillations, which are due to the AFC algorithm's attempt to cancel out the harmonics. Alright, let's move on to the second major issue, the voltage ripple. Let's take the same scenario without the AFC algorithm, but now I'll lower the supply voltage just to emphasize that the voltage amplitude is at its limit, so we can't push the controller any further, meaning we can't increase the power output. This time, we'll use the plug-in method, meaning the AFC algorithm's output directly changes the PI controller's input. We'll subtract the AFC's output from the current commands, and its input will still be the current error. Now let's run the simulation. We can see that there are still oscillations on the DQ currents and torque. However, the D and Q voltages are flat now, and we're a bit farther away from the voltage limit. Essentially, what we did is change the current commands to fit the oscillations. That way, the PI controllers don't have oscillations on their outputs, resulting in oscillating currents and slight torque ripple, but DC, D and Q voltages. That way, we'll be farther away from the voltage limit and be able to increase the power output. Okay, so short recap. The first AFC method reduces the torque ripple, but increases the voltage ripple, which limits the maximum power output. The second AFC method slightly increases the torque ripple, but reduces the voltage ripple, allowing for higher power outputs. Let's quickly go over the AFC algorithm implementation in Python. I take the current angle and multiply it by the AFC harmonic, which is the 6th harmonic in our case. This is because the 5th and 7th harmonics in the ABC reference frame transform into the 6th harmonic in the DQ reference frame. I'll explain why that is in the end. Then, we obtain the sine and cosine values. Now we multiply the errors by the AFC gains. Next up is summing the errors multiplied by the sine and cosine waves. Bear in mind that the integrals won't accumulate to infinity. Rather, they will converge to the values which will cancel out the desired harmonic in the error signal. Next up, we multiply the summed values by the respective sine or cosine values and add the result according to the AFC method. I'll add a link to the GitHub repository in the description if you want to take a closer look. One nuance I'm ignoring here is a possible phase shift parameter. Here's a block diagram showing the working of the AFC algorithm. In my implementation, I assumed this phase advance parameter phi is 0. This parameter may be necessary to maintain control stability. Here's the AFC controller's Baudet plot with a phase advance parameter of 0. The AFC's job is to increase the controller's gain significantly at the desired frequency, leading to high error attenuation. Here's the AFC controller's Baudet plot when we change the phase advance parameter. The phase advance parameter can change between plus and minus 90 degrees. It seems to be a consensus to set the phase advance parameter to the plant's phase at the AFC's chosen frequency. I ignored this parameter since in my use cases of AFC, I didn't need it. I set it to 0 and the system remains stable. However, it may be necessary in other applications, so just be aware of that. By the way, I mentioned that the harmonics are the 5th and 7th, and that the chosen AFC harmonic is subsequently the 6th, but I didn't explain why. Let's get into it now. Let's take sine waves with the 5th and 7th harmonics in the ABC reference frame. I added a negative sign to the 5th harmonic because it's a negative sequence harmonic, and it reverses the phase sequence, as opposed to the 7th harmonic, which is considered a positive sequence harmonic. A short segue into what that means exactly. If we look at the 5th harmonic, we simply look at the resulting phase shift. 5 times 120 is 600, and 600 modulus 360 is negative 120. So that reverses the phase orientations. All of a sudden, phase B is shifted by plus 120, and phase C is shifted by minus 120. For the 7th harmonic, the phases remain as is, no shifting occurs. So the 5th harmonic is a negative sequence, and the 7th harmonic is a positive sequence. Okay, now we can transform the ABC phases using the direct transform to get their D and Q counterparts. I'll split up the calculations to each harmonic. For the fundamental frequency, the D-axis results in 0, and the Q-axis results in the amplitude. For the higher harmonics, due to trigonometric identities, we get a 6th harmonic in the DQ reference frame. And that's all, folks. Hope you enjoyed and/or learned something. See you next time.